My ex-wife's husband publicly disrespected my trade. Now he needs my help. 35, been a union electrician for 12 years, IBEW Local 48. Divorced 3 years ago after a rough split with Jessica, 33. She remarried Brad, 32, about 18 months ago, guy she'd been dating for 6 months before they tied the knot. We have 3 kids together, Emma, 14, Tyler, 12, and Sophie, 8. I try to keep things civil for the kids. Co-parenting isn't easy, especially when your ex moves 45 minutes away and starts a new life, but I do my part. Show up for school events, never miss a game, pay my support on time. The kids are what matter. Last Saturday was Emma's volleyball tournament. I always wear my union local shirt to their games, partly because I'm proud of what I do, partly because it's comfortable, mostly because after 12 years of getting up at 5 a.m. to wire buildings, wearing that shirt feels like who I am. Brad was there with Jessica in the bleachers. I sit separately. We figured out early that sitting together just creates tension the kids can feel. But the gym isn't that big, so you hear conversations whether you want to or not. During the break between sets, some parent was complaining about a contractor who'd messed up their kitchen renovation. Brad jumped right into the conversation, loud enough that half the gym could hear him. "That's your problem right there," he said. "These union guys, they're parasites. They inflate every job, take forever to finish, and you're paying for a bunch of bureaucratic nonsense. Real tradesmen don't need unions telling them how to do their jobs." I'm sitting 3 rows behind them, wearing my local 48 shirt, watching my daughter serve. The irony wasn't lost on me. He kept going. "I do data networking, run my own business. No middleman, no union dues, no artificial wage inflation. That's how you build something real in this country. These union guys are living off other people's work." Every word felt like a deliberate slap. I've spent 12 years learning my trade, 4 years of apprenticeship where I made barely enough to survive, countless hours studying code updates and safety regulations. I've wired hospitals, schools, manufacturing plants. I've worked in conditions that would make his air-conditioned office job look like a vacation. But I didn't say anything. Not in front of the kids, not at Emma's game. I watched her team win their set and tried to focus on being proud of my daughter instead of angry at the man her mother married. After the game, Emma ran over to give me a hug. "Did you see that spike in the 3rd set, Dad?" I told her she was amazing, that I was proud of her, all the things a father should say. But part of me was thinking about Brad's comments, wondering if my kids heard them, wondering what they thought about their dad being a parasite. Jessica walked past with Brad as they were leaving. She didn't make eye contact, but Brad looked right at me in my union shirt and nodded like we were buddies. Like he hadn't just spent 10 minutes explaining to a gym full of people why everything I do for a living is worthless. I've been thinking about that moment all week. Not because I'm looking for a fight, but because disrespect has a way of sticking with you. When someone insults your trade, your training, your livelihood, especially in front of your kids, it's not just words. It's an attack on everything you've built your life around. I know Brad's background. He does data cabling and network setups, mostly for small businesses. Started his own company after getting laid off from some tech job 2 years ago. From what Jessica mentioned during our brief conversations, it's been a struggle to build clientele. The guy works hard, I'll give him that. But working hard doesn't give you the right to tear down other people's professions, especially when you're talking about someone's father at their kid's sporting event. Maybe I'm being too sensitive. Maybe this is just how people talk when they don't think you're listening. But 12 years in the trades teaches you that respect is earned through competence and professionalism, not by putting down other people's work. I'm not looking for drama. The divorce was messy enough, and the kids don't need their parents feuding over every little thing. But I can't shake the feeling that this won't be the last time Brad decides to share his opinions about my profession. Update 1. This situation just took a turn I wasn't expecting. Jessica called me yesterday afternoon while I was finishing up a job at a medical office complex. She usually only calls about scheduling changes or school events, so I figured one of the kids was sick or needed a ride. "Hey Mike, I have a quick favor to ask." That phrase should have been my first warning sign. In my experience, favors that start with quick are never quick. "Brad's got this networking job for a small office building," she continued. The client needs some electrical work done before he can install the data infrastructure. Nothing major, just a few outlets added and some circuit work. He was wondering if you could take a look at it. I was quiet for a minute, processing this. The same guy who'd called union electricians parasites 5 days ago now needed one to save his contract. What kind of electrical work are we talking about? I asked. I don't know the technical details. Brad said you'd only need your tools for a few minutes. The client is getting impatient, and this job is really important for his business. Only need my tools for a few minutes. That phrase told me everything I needed to know about how Brad and apparently Jessica viewed electrical work. Like it's something you just grab a screwdriver and knock out between lunch and dinner. Jessica, adding outlets isn't a few minutes with tools. That's running new circuits, possibly upgrading panels, pulling permits if required. That's a day's work minimum, maybe more depending on what the building needs. Well, whatever it takes. Brad just needs it done so he can finish his part. Can you help us out? Us. Interesting choice of words. I told her I'd think about it and call her back. Then I spent the rest of my drive home trying to figure out why this request bothered me so much beyond the obvious irony. It wasn't just that Brad had insulted my trade and then immediately needed my expertise. It was the assumption that I'd drop everything to help him out of a bind, like my time and skills were just sitting around waiting for his convenience. It was the phrase, only need your tools for a few minutes, like 12 years of training could be reduced to borrowing a socket wrench. It was Jessica framing this as a favor instead of acknowledging that Brad needed to hire a professional for professional work. When I got home, I called my buddy Rick, who's also local 48. Told him the situation without names, just the basics. Someone insults union workers, then needs union work done. Rick laughed. Man, that happens more than you'd think. Half these anti-union guys end up calling us when their handyman can't figure out why the lights keep tripping the breaker. What would you do? Charge 'em full rate plus asshole tax. Professional work costs professional money, regardless of who's paying. That night, I thought about what I wanted to accomplish here. I could help Brad out, take the high road, show the kids that their dad is bigger than petty workplace politics. Or I could treat this like any other electrical job. Professional work requires professional compensation and professional respect. The more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't about getting back at Brad. It was about something bigger, about what my kids see when they watch how people treat their father's profession. If I do this work for free or cheap because it's family, what message does that send? That dad's skills don't have real value. That electrical work is something anyone can do if they just grab some tools. I called Jessica back this morning. I can do the electrical work for Brad's job, I said. I'll need to see the building first to give an accurate estimate, but I charge my standard rate for all electrical work. Your standard rate? Mike, this is just helping us out. Jessica, this is professional electrical work. I don't do professional work for free. There was silence on the line. Then, how much are we talking about? Depends on what the job actually requires. Probably somewhere between $800 and $1,500 for what you're describing plus materials. Mike, that's a lot for a few outlets. That's what electrical work costs when it's done legally and safely. She said she'd talk to Brad and get back to me. I haven't heard from them since. Part of me wonders if I'm being petty. The kids love Brad and he's generally good to them. Jessica seems happy, which matters for co-parenting peace. But the other part of me knows that respect isn't something you can compromise away piece by piece. If Brad wants to hire an electrician, he can hire an electrician at electrician rates. The fact that I'm the father of his stepchildren doesn't change the value of my work. We'll see what they decide. Update 2: Jessica called me back 3 days ago, and the conversation didn't go the way I expected. Mike, I talked to Brad about your rate for the electrical work. He thinks it's excessive for what should be a simple job. I was replacing a panel at a commercial kitchen when she called, so I had to step outside to hear her clearly over the equipment noise. Did he get other estimates? I asked. He called around. Most electricians are booking 3 weeks out or more. His client needs this done by Friday or they're threatening to cancel the contract. That explained a lot. Brad had waited until the last minute to arrange for electrical work, probably thinking he could handle it himself or that it wasn't necessary. Now he was in a bind and needed someone who could drop everything to save his timeline. Jessica, I gave you a fair estimate based on what you described. If other electricians aren't available, that's not my problem to solve. Mike, this is really important for Brad's business. This contract could be a game changer for him. I felt myself getting annoyed, not just at the situation, but at how Jessica was framing this conversation. Like Brad's business needs were my responsibility, like I should care more about his success than my own professional standards. Then he should have planned better, I said. Professional electrical work requires professional scheduling. There was a long pause, then Jessica's voice changed, got that edge I remembered from our worst fights during the divorce. You're really going to force this issue with my husband? Over money? Force this issue. Like charging fair wages for skilled labor was some kind of petty power play. I'm not forcing anything, Jess. I'm offering to do professional work for professional pay, same as I do for everyone else. Everyone else isn't family. Brad made it pretty clear at Emma's volleyball game that he doesn't consider me family. Another pause, longer this time. What's that supposed to mean? I told her about Brad's comments at the tournament. How he'd spent 10 minutes explaining to anyone who'd listen why union electricians are parasites while I sat 3 rows away in my local 48 shirt. Mike, that wasn't about you personally. It was about my profession, my training, everything I've built my career on, and now he needs that same profession to save his business. So you're going to punish him for having political opinions. Like the value of skilled labor is just another topic for dinner party debate. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm treating this like any other business transaction. If Brad wants to hire an electrician, he can pay electrician rates. But you're not any electrician, you're the kid's father. There it was, the guilt card I'd been waiting for. The assumption that being a father meant my professional skills should be available at family discount rates. Being their father doesn't make my work worth less, Jessica. It means you should care about their family's well-being. I care about teaching them that their dad's work has value, that skills and training deserve respect. The conversation went downhill from there. Jessica accused me of being petty and vindictive. I accused her of enabling her husband's disrespectful attitude. We both said things we probably shouldn't have. She hung up after telling me she was disappointed in my reaction and that she'd expected better from me as a co-parent. Last night, Tyler called me after dinner. He's 12, old enough to pick up on adult tension but not old enough to understand the complexities. Dad, why are Mom and Brad upset about electrical work? I tried to explain without making Brad look bad. Told Tyler that sometimes adults disagree about business things, but it doesn't affect how much I love him and his sisters. Brad said you're being unreasonable about helping family. That hit harder than it should have. Not because Brad was wrong, but because it meant this conversation was happening in front of my kids. They were hearing their stepfather's version of why their dad wouldn't help out. Tyler, what do you know about my job? You're an electrician, you wire buildings and fix electrical stuff. Do you think that's important work? Yeah, I guess buildings need electricity. Do you think people should pay for important work? He was quiet for a minute. Then, yeah, but Brad's family now, right? Don't we help family for free? 12-year-old logic is hard to argue with. In Tyler's world, family helps family, no questions asked. The idea that there might be principles involved beyond immediate family harmony doesn't compute yet. I told him I'd always help family when they really need it, but that sometimes adults have complicated situations to work through. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen thinking about whether I was handling this right. Maybe I should just do the work for free, keep the peace, show the kids that their dad is the bigger person. But every time I consider backing down, I remember Brad's voice in that gym. The casual dismissal of everything I've worked for. The assumption that union workers are somehow less legitimate than his self-employed networking business. And I think about what lesson my kids learn if I cave now. That dad's work isn't really worth what he charges other people. That family can devalue your skills as long as they need something from you. That respect is optional when it's convenient. I called Rick again last night. Told him about the family pressure about Tyler's questions. Man, that's rough, he said. But you know what's rougher? Spending the next 20 years having your ex-wife's husband think he can get professional services from you whenever he needs them. This isn't really about one job. He's right. This is about establishing boundaries that will last for years of co-parenting. about whether my professional skills are something Brad can count on accessing when it's convenient for him. Jessica texted me this morning. Brad found another electrician. More expensive than your quote, but at least he's willing to help. I haven't responded yet. Part of me feels vindicated if Brad found someone else at a higher rate, then my quote wasn't unreasonable. Part of me feels guilty for not being the solution when my family needed one. Mostly, I feel like I held a line that needed to be held, even if holding it cost me some peace with Jessica and confusion for the kids. We'll see how this plays out long term. Final update: it's been 3 weeks since Jessica's last text about Brad finding another electrician. The situation has settled into something I didn't expect, a kind of cold peace that's probably more honest than what we had before. Last Tuesday, I picked up Emma and Sophie for their week at my place. Usually Jessica and I do the handoff in the driveway with minimal conversation, but this time she walked out to my truck while the girls were grabbing their bags. "Mike, we need to talk about what happened with Brad's job." I turned off the engine. Emma and Sophie were still inside gathering their things, so we had a minute. "What about it?" "The electrician Brad hired did shoddy work. The client refused to pay him, said the outlets weren't installed to code and the circuit work was dangerous. Brad lost the contract." I didn't say anything. What was I supposed to say? I was sorry Brad's business suffered, that he should have hired better help. The client specifically asked if Brad knew any reputable electricians for their next building. Brad had to admit he'd turned down the one he knew personally. There was something in Jessica's voice I hadn't heard in years, the tone she used when she was about to admit she'd been wrong about something important. "Brad wanted me to tell you he's sorry about what he said at the volleyball game. He didn't realize you'd heard, and he was just trying to fit in with the other parents." That bothered me more than a direct insult would have. The idea that trashing union workers was just something Brad thought other parents wanted to hear, like discussing the weather or complaining about traffic. "Jessica, it wasn't about me hearing it, it's about what he actually thinks. He doesn't really think that. He was just talking. Just talking is how disrespect spreads. Your husband spent 10 minutes explaining to a gym full of people why my profession is worthless. That's not casual conversation, that's a deliberate choice to tear down something he doesn't understand." Emma came out with her overnight bag, so we dropped the conversation. But something had shifted. Jessica wasn't defending Brad's comments anymore, just making excuses for them. That weekend, while the girls were at my place, Tyler called from Jessica's house. He wanted to tell me about his science project, but ended up talking about the electrical work situation instead. "Dad, Brad said the electrician he hired messed up really bad. Like, the lights didn't work right and stuff. That happens sometimes when people rush electrical work or don't follow proper procedures. Would you have done it better?" "I would have done it to code, which means it would have passed inspection and been safe." Tyler was quiet for a minute. Then, "Brad said maybe he should have listened to you about the money thing." Out of the mouths of 12-year-olds. "Tyler, this was never about money. It was about doing work the right way." "I know, Dad. Brad knows that now too." Yesterday, something unexpected happened. I was finishing up a service call at a small office building when I ran into the building owner in the parking lot. He mentioned he'd had problems with some contractor who'd done poor electrical work for a tenant's networking upgrade. "You wouldn't happen to know a good data networking guy, would you?" he asked. "Someone who works with quality electricians instead of trying to cut corners." I almost laughed. The circle of small-town business is smaller than people think. "I might know someone," I said. "But you want to make sure he understands the importance of proper electrical infrastructure before any networking gets installed." I gave him Brad's contact information. Not because I forgave the volleyball game comments or because I wanted to help Jessica's husband succeed, but because the building owner needed data work done, and Brad does decent networking when he's not trying to shortcut the electrical requirements. Professional is professional, regardless of personal feelings. This morning, Jessica texted me, "Brad got a call about a networking job. The client mentioned you recommended him. Thank you." I haven't responded yet. Not because I'm angry, but because I'm not sure what to say. This was never about getting revenge or teaching lessons. It was about maintaining professional standards and personal boundaries. The truth is, Brad's a decent enough stepfather to my kids. He shows up to their games, helps with homework, makes Jessica happy. His opinions about my profession are ignorant, but they don't make him evil. What bothered me wasn't really his politics about unions or his misunderstanding of skilled labor costs. It was the disrespect. The assumption that he could publicly tear down my work and then privately benefit from my skills when it was convenient. I've learned something over these past few weeks. Boundaries aren't about punishment or revenge. They're about clarity. They're about making sure people understand what they can expect from you and what you expect from them. Brad needed to learn that I'm not his free electrician just because I'm connected to his family. I needed to learn that standing up for professional respect doesn't make me petty, even when other people say it does. My kids needed to see that their dad's work has value, that skills and training deserve fair compensation, and that respect is something you maintain through your actions, not just your words. The relationship between Jessica, Brad, and me will never be warm, but it might be more honest now. They understand that I'm willing to be civil and even helpful, but not at the expense of my professional dignity. That's a boundary I can live with. Emma's got another volleyball tournament this weekend. I'll be there in my local 48 shirt, watching my daughter play, proud of the work I do and the example I try to set. If Brad wants to make comments about union workers, that's his right. If he needs electrical work done professionally and safely, he knows where to find me. At full rate.